He made two glasses. Watch her drink. So, was the switch already expected?
The moment the juice touched my tongue, I knew something was wrong. Not spoiled, not sour. Wrong. Have you ever tasted something that didn't belong in your mouth? Something your body rejects before your mind can even process it? That's what it felt like. I didn't spit it out. I didn't flinch. I smiled. Because across from me, standing in our kitchen, under that warm yellow light like nothing in the world could be wrong, was my husband. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Daniel. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of routine, 10 years of knowing exactly how he moved, how he spoke, how he looked at me. And in that moment, he was watching me too closely. Made it just for you, he said, leaning casually against the counter. Casually, that's the word most people would use. But I noticed the details. The way his fingers tapped once, twice, against the marble. The way his eyes didn't leave my face when I lifted the glass. The way he hadn't touched his own drink yet. Why wasn't he drinking? I tilted the glass, took a sip, and there it was again, that bitter edge. Faint, but unmistakable, lingering on the back of my tongue like a warning. Metallic. Unnatural. I swallowed anyway. Thank you, I said, setting the glass down gently. You ever pretend everything's normal while your entire body is screaming that it's not? That's where I was. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just about the taste. It was about everything that came before it. The small things. The things you ignore at first. Like the insurance email I got 3 weeks ago. A policy in my name. Large. Too large. I didn't remember signing anything. When I asked Daniel, he laughed it off. Just future planning, he said. You worry too much. Do I? Or the way he started double-checking everything I did. Did you really send that email? Are you sure you paid that bill? You've been forgetful lately, Elena. Forgetful. That word started showing up more and more. Like he was planting it. Or watering it. And then there was the drawer. Locked. In his office. Daniel never locked anything before. Not from me. But now, click. Every time he left the room, every time I got too close. So tell me if you were sitting where I was sitting, tasting something bitter in a drink your husband made while he watched you like that. Would you say something? Or would you do what I did? I kept smiling. I let the silence stretch just enough to feel normal. Then, casually like it meant nothing, I reached for his glass. Yours looks better, I joked lightly. And before he could react, I switched them. Clean, smooth, effortless. The kind of movement you only pull off when someone trusts you completely. He didn't stop me. Didn't question it. Didn't even blink. That should have scared me more than anything. Instead, he just smiled back. And finally, he picked up the glass, the one that had been meant for me, and took a sip. Just one. Small, controlled, but enough. I picked up the other glass, the safe one, I realized now, and drank again. Sweet, normal, exactly what it should have been. Which meant one thing. It wasn't the juice. It was the glass. And now, he had it. We stood there in silence. 2 people, 1 kitchen, 1 mistake depending on how you look at it. Then the seconds started to pass. Slow at first, then heavier, thicker, like the air itself was waiting. 5 minutes, 10, 15, and Daniel, he was still smiling, but something in his eyes had started to shift. Something small, something almost invisible, unless you were looking for it. And I was, because deep down, I already knew. This moment wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. And whatever he had planned for me was already beginning to work, but not on the person he expected. You don't notice the shift when it's happening, only when it's already too late. That's the dangerous part. Not the poison. Not the plan. The build-up. Because sitting there, watching Daniel hold that glass, my glass now, I realized something unsettling. This hadn't started tonight. It had been unfolding for months. Quietly. Carefully. And I'd almost missed it. Let me take you back. 3 weeks before the juice. I'm sitting on the couch, laptop open, halfway through a client project. My inbox pings. Subject line, policy confirmation urgent. I almost delete it. Thought it was spam. But something makes me click. And there it is. A life insurance policy. In my name. Coverage amount? High enough to make my chest tighten. Beneficiary? Daniel. I remember staring at the screen, rereading it over and over. Trying to recall signing anything. A document, an email, a phone call. Nothing. When he got home that night, I asked him directly. No hesitation. No accusation. Just curiosity. Hey, did we take out a life insurance policy on me? He paused. Just for a second. But I saw it. Then he smiled. Relaxed. Easy. Yeah, I meant to tell you, it's just smart planning. Smart planning. That phrase sat wrong with me. Without telling me? He laughed. Actually left. Elena, come on, it's for us. You've been so stressed lately, I didn't want to overwhelm you with paperwork. There it was again. That subtle twist, making it about me. My stress, my memory, my supposed overwhelm. And here's the thing, I almost accepted it. Almost. Then came the second moment. A week later, I'm looking for a charger in his office. Normal, routine, something I've done 100 times. Except this time, the drawer is locked. I pull once, twice, nothing. And I remember thinking, since when does Daniel lock things? That same night, I wake up around 2 a.m. The bed is empty. Light is on in his office. I walk quietly down the hallway. Not suspicious. Just curious. And then I hear it. His voice? Low. Controlled. Not the way he speaks to me. No, she hasn't noticed anything. Silence. Then, I just need a little more time. My stomach drops. Not enough to confront him. Not enough to panic. But enough to remember. And then, today, just hours before the kitchen, I walked in unexpectedly while he was at the sink. He didn't hear me. 2 glasses on the counter. Both filled with orange juice. But they weren't the same. One looked slightly off, cloudier, thicker. I frowned, took a step closer, and that's when he turned around suddenly. Startled. Too startled. Oh, hey, he said quickly, stepping between me and the counter, blocking my view. Why block it? It's just juice, he added, almost too fast. I nodded slowly, backed off. But something stayed with me. Something small. Something easy to ignore if you wanted to. I didn't. So now, back in the present, standing in that kitchen, watching him, counting seconds without meaning to. Something changes. Minute 12. His hand tightens slightly around the glass. Minute 14. He swallows harder than usual. Minute 16. His eyes flicker not to me, but downward, briefly. And then back up again. Still smiling. Still pretending. But the rhythm is off now. Subtle, cracking. And here's the question that hit me in that moment. Did he notice the switch? Because if he did, why would he still drink it? Why wouldn't he stop? Why wouldn't he say something? Unless he didn't think I'd figure it out. Unless he thought I'd already drunk enough. Enough for it to work. Enough for it to be too late. Minute 18. He sets the glass down. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Just carefully. Too carefully. Like his body is starting to betray him, but he's trying to stay ahead of it. Everything okay? I ask. Light. Casual. Almost playful. He nods. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be? But his voice, it's different now. Thinner. Tighter. And for the first time since this began, Daniel looks uncertain. Minute 20. His fingers twitch. Just once. But I see it. I see everything now. And in that exact moment, the realization locks into place. Clear, cold, unavoidable. He didn't just plan this. He expected it to be over by now. And suddenly, the waiting ends because Daniel's hand slips from the counter and the glass shatters on the floor. When the glass hit the floor, I didn't move. That's the part people always think they'd get right. They imagine panic, screaming, rushing forward, calling for help before the sound of the shards even stops ringing. But when you've been lied to slowly, when doubt has been fed to you in careful little doses, there's a moment when fear doesn't come first. Clarity does. Daniel stared at the broken glass on the tile like he couldn't understand how it had gotten there. Then he looked at his hand. It was trembling. Small at first, almost invisible. The kind of movement you'd miss if you weren't already watching for it. Daniel? I said, and even to my own ears, my voice sounded strange. Not frightened, not soft, just measured. He straightened too quickly, like he could force his body back under control if he moved with enough confidence. I'm fine, he said. But he wasn't. He took one step toward the sink and had to grab the edge of the counter. His knuckles went pale, his jaw tightened. The smile was gone now, replaced by something uglier, confusion first, then calculation. And that look told me everything. He knew something was happening, and he knew why. Do you know what's chilling about that? Not that he was sick, not even that he was scared. It was that he never once asked what was wrong with the juice. Because he already knew, I stayed exactly where I was, one hand resting lightly against the table, and let the silence stretch between us. He looked at my glass, then at me. There it was, the first crack in the performance. What did you do? He asked. Not, are you okay? Not, did something happen? Not even, should I call someone? Just that. What did you do? I tilted my head slightly. I drank what you gave me. His breathing changed, sharper now. Then I added, didn't you? For a second, neither of us moved. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. A dry, strained sound that didn't belong to a man losing control of his own body. It belonged to a man still trying to get control back. Elena, stop, he said. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. It almost would have been funny. That word had become his favorite weapon lately. Anytime I asked a question he didn't like, anytime I noticed something he wanted hidden, anytime reality slipped out of his grip and he needed to push it back onto me. You're dramatic. You're tired. You're overthinking. You forgot. You're confused. But not tonight. Tonight, he was the one blinking too fast. He was the one sweating through his shirt collar. He was the one whose legs suddenly didn't seem trustworthy anymore. And still, part of me hated how normal the kitchen looked. The fruit bowl. The folded dish towel. The soft hum of the refrigerator. Everything exactly the same. Except nothing was the same anymore. Daniel pulled out a chair and missed it slightly before catching himself. He sat hard, one hand pressed flat against the table. I think, he swallowed. I think I need water. His voice cracked on the last word. I didn't move. You made juice? I said quietly. Why would you need water? His eyes snapped to mine. There it was again, that raw flash of fear. Then anger followed it. Because fear was never going to be the first thing he showed me if he could help it. Anger was safer for him. Anger kept him in charge. What is wrong with you? He said, louder this time. Just get me the water. I looked at him for a long moment. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of birthdays, rent payments, inside jokes, takeout on the couch, bad vacations, quiet apologies, all of it narrowing down into this one kitchen, this one table, this one poisoned silence. And suddenly I remembered something I hadn't let myself fully process. 2 months ago, Daniel had started insisting I was too distracted to drive at night. A month ago, he suggested maybe I should let him handle all our banking until things calmed down. Last week, he told our friends I'd been having a hard time lately with stress and memory lapses. He'd been building a version of me. Unstable, forgetful, fragile. Why build that version unless you plan to use it? That thought settled over me like ice. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't desperation in one bad moment. This was preparation. And now he was sitting in front of me, hand shaking harder by the second, realizing the story he'd planned no longer ended with me. His chair scraped back. He tried to stand. This time, he couldn't. He caught himself on the edge of the table, breathing hard, eyes wide, with the first honest emotion I'd seen on his face all night. Panic. Then, in a voice so low it almost disappeared, he said my name. Not the way a husband says it. The way a man does when he finally understands he is no longer the one in control. And that was the moment I realized this night was about to become something much worse than suspicion. Because Daniel wasn't just weakening. He was starting to confess without saying a word. So I let him keep talking, even when he wasn't using words. Because here's the truth. People reveal everything when control slips. And Daniel? He was losing it fast. He tried to stand again. Failed. His hand dragged across the table, knocking over the empty glass, the wrong glass, the one that was never meant for him. It rolled once. Twice. Then stopped. Just like the plan he thought he had under control. Elena, he said, breath uneven now. Something's wrong. There it was. Not confusion. Recognition. And that subtle difference, it changes everything. I stepped closer, slow enough that every movement felt deliberate. Measured. Is it? I asked. My voice didn't rise, didn't shake. If anything, it settled. And I could see it hit him that shift. The moment he realized I wasn't reacting the way he expected, because I wasn't rushing. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't saving him. I was watching the same way he had watched me. He grabbed the edge of the table, trying to steady himself, but his fingers weren't cooperating anymore. They curled awkwardly like they didn't belong to him. I think I need a doctor, he said. You think? I studied him for a second longer. You didn't think that 20 minutes ago, I replied. His eyes snapped up again. And this time, there was no hiding it. Fear. Clear. Sharp. Undeniable. What are you talking about? He said quickly. Too quickly. So I tilted my head. Just slightly. The juice, I said. 2 words. That's all it took. Because suddenly, Daniel wasn't trying to stand anymore. He wasn't trying to argue. He wasn't even pretending. He was calculating, running through possibilities, replaying the last 20 minutes in his head. The glasses, the switch, the sip, and then understanding. His gaze dropped to the floor, where the shattered glass still glistened under the kitchen light. Then, slowly, painfully, it lifted back to me. You, he started, but the word broke apart halfway through. I didn't help him finish it. I wanted him to get there on his own. You switched them, he said finally. Not a question. A statement. I didn't answer right away. Let that silence sit between us again. Let it press on him. Then calmly, I drank what you gave me. A beat. And you drank what was meant for me. His breathing turned shallow. Faster now. Each inhale like it had to fight its way in. That doesn't make sense, he muttered. Why would you do that? Why? That word almost made me smile. Because he was asking the wrong question. You tell me, I said softly. And that's when it happened. The shift? The real one. Not the physical symptoms. Not the trembling or the weakness. This was deeper. Because Daniel realized something terrifying in that moment. If I knew enough to switch the glasses, then I knew more than he thought. He shook his head, trying to reset the narrative. It's nothing, he said quickly. You're overreacting again. It's probably just bad juice or... He stopped. Mid-sentence. Because even he didn't believe it anymore. And neither did I. He slid off the chair slightly, catching himself on one knee. His body was giving up faster now. Okay, he whispered. Just call someone, all right? We'll figure it out. Still trying to pull me back into us. Still trying to act like this was something happening to both of us. But it wasn't. This was something he did. And now, it was happening to him. I crouched down in front of him. Not to help. To look directly into his eyes. Daniel, I said quietly, what did you put in the juice? His lips parted. Closed. Opened again. Nothing came out. Because saying it would make it real. And as long as he didn't say it, There was still a version of this where he wasn't the man who tried to kill his wife. His hand reached for me. Weak, shaking, desperate now. Elena, please. That word again. Please. Not control, not manipulation, just fear. Raw and stripped down. And that's when I knew he was close. Close to breaking. Close to telling the truth. Not because he wanted to, but because he didn't have anything left to hold it in. I leaned in slightly, close enough that he couldn't look away. And I asked one simple question. Was it supposed to hurt? His expression changed instantly. Not confusion. Not denial. Recognition. Guilt. And something worse. Relief. Because now, he didn't have to pretend anymore. His body sagged. His grip on reality slipping just as fast as his grip on the table had minutes ago. And in a voice that barely held together, he started to answer. But the first word out of his mouth wasn't an explanation. It was a confession. The truth doesn't come out clean, it leaks. And that's exactly what Daniels did. No. The word slipped out of him like it didn't belong there. Not strong enough to be denial. Not clear enough to be an answer. Just the beginning of something unraveling. I didn't interrupt, didn't rush him. Because when someone reaches that point, when the body is failing and the mind is scrambling to keep up, they start telling the truth in pieces. And if you wait long enough, those pieces form something complete. No, it wasn't supposed to hurt, he said again, a little clearer this time. His voice trembled, uneven, like every word cost him something. I held his gaze. Then what was it supposed to do? He swallowed hard. Too hard. Like even that simple motion had become difficult. It was supposed to be gradual, he said. Just enough to make it look like something else. Something else. I let the silence stretch. Like what? I asked. He shut his eyes briefly, as if that could delay what came next. An illness, he said. There it was. Not dramatic. Not explosive, just quiet and final. Do you feel that shift? That moment when suspicion stops being a possibility and becomes a fact? Because that's where I was standing now. No more guessing. No more piecing things together. Just the truth, sitting between us on the kitchen floor. What kind of illness, Daniel? I asked. His head shook weakly. I don't know, something sudden, something that wouldn't raise questions right away. His words were breaking apart now. But the meaning? Perfectly clear. I leaned back slightly, studying him. Is that why you've been telling people I'm forgetful? I asked. His eyes opened. Wide. Sharp with panic again. Because that part he hadn't meant to say out loud. That's not, he started. It is, I cut in, still calm. You've been setting it up, making it believable, so when something happened to me, people wouldn't question it. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. And then a tiny nod. Barely visible. But enough. Why now? I asked. And this time, he didn't hesitate. Because the answer to that question had been driving everything. The policy, he said. 2 words. Flat, empty. It was finalized today. There it was. The timing. The reason tonight wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was scheduled. Planned. Executed. How much? I asked. He let out something between a breath and a laugh. Enough, he said. Of course it was. Enough to risk everything. Enough to end a life. Enough to make 10 years disposable. My chest felt tight for a second. Not from fear. Not from grief. Just from the sheer weight of how calculated it all was. You were going to do this in stages, I said slowly. Weren't you? He nodded weakly. Small amounts. At first, he admitted, so it wouldn't be obvious. Then, more. And tonight? His eyes flickered. A pause. Then, I needed it to happen faster. That was it. No dramatic justification. No emotional breakdown. Just efficiency. Like he was explaining a business decision that had gone slightly off track. His hand reached for me again. shaking worse now. Elena, please, this isn't just call someone, okay? I can explain. Explain? I almost asked what part of this needed explaining, but I didn't, because I already had everything I needed. I stood up slowly, walked back to the counter, picked up my phone, the same phone he had encouraged me to rely on less lately, the same phone he thought I wouldn't use properly under pressure. Behind me, his breathing grew heavier, more uneven. Please, he said again, weaker this time. I looked down at the screen. Emergency call. One tap away. And in that moment, everything narrowed into a single choice. Not about revenge, not about anger, but about what happens next. I glanced back at him, at the man who had planned my death down to the smallest detail, now struggling to stay conscious on the kitchen floor. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I asked myself one final question. Do I save him? Or let his plan finish just not the way he intended? I did call. Not immediately, but not too late either. That's the part people will question. How long I waited. Why I didn't rush the second he started collapsing. But the truth is, time felt different in that kitchen. Slower, heavier, measured in breaths instead of seconds. And Daniel? He was running out of both. I pressed the call button, put the phone to my ear, gave the address calmly. Clear voice, no panic. Possible poisoning, I said. A pause on the other end. Is the person conscious? I looked at him. Barely. Yes, I replied, but not for long. The paramedics arrived faster than I expected. Or maybe it just felt that way because everything after the call snapped back into motion. Lights, voices, questions, hands lifting him, equipment unfolding. And through all of it, Daniel kept trying to look at me, like I was the last thing he needed to understand before everything went dark. I didn't look away. At the hospital, things moved quickly. Tests, monitoring, urgency. The word toxin was used within the first hour. The word intentional followed soon after. Because this wasn't food poisoning. It wasn't an accident. And the evidence? It started stacking up almost immediately. The glasses. Still in the kitchen. Residue found in one of them. Not both. That alone raised questions. Then the policy. Large, recent, beneficiary, Daniel. That raised more. Then his devices. Search history doesn't lie. Even when people think they've been careful. Terms like undetectable poisons, symptoms that mimic illness, delayed onset toxins, all time-stamped, all recent, all aligning perfectly with what happened that night. And then there was my phone. Because while Daniel was unraveling on the floor, while he was confessing piece by piece, I had done one more thing. Something small. Something quiet. I pressed record. They played it back later. In a small room, neutral walls, fluorescent lighting, no emotion. Just his voice. Weak. Strained, but clear enough. It was supposed to be gradual. The policy, it was finalized today. I needed it to happen faster. No interpretation needed. No guessing. No room to twist the story. Just truth. Unfiltered. Daniel survived. Barely. The doctor said if I had waited much longer, he wouldn't have. That became another question later. One I answered the same way every time. I called as soon as I understood what was happening. Which was true. Just not in the way people expected. When he woke up, the situation had already shifted beyond his control. Police were there. Questions were waiting. And this time, he didn't have the advantage of preparation. No slow narrative building. No subtle manipulation. Just facts. He tried at first. Of course he did. Said it was a mistake. Said he had been researching out of curiosity. Said I misunderstood everything. But that version of reality didn't hold. Because evidence doesn't forget. And recordings don't reinterpret themselves. The charges came quickly. Attempted murder. And tied into that, insurance fraud. Because intent matters. Planning matters. And he had both. His business collapsed within weeks. Accounts frozen. Partners distancing themselves. Clients pulling out because reputation doesn't survive something like this. Socially, it fractured in predictable ways. Some people didn't believe it at first. They couldn't. The idea that someone could live beside you for 10 years and quietly plan your death, it's easier to doubt the victim than accept that reality. But evidence has weight. And eventually, it settles. His family tried to defend him. At first, they said he was stressed, not himself. That there had to be another explanation. But even they went quiet after hearing the recording. After seeing the timeline, after realizing this wasn't a moment, it was a process. As for me, I filed for divorce the same week. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Because whatever existed between us ended in that kitchen. Not when he collapsed. Not when he confessed. But the moment I tasted that bitterness and understood what it meant, I moved out, closed our joint accounts, changed everything that had his name attached to it. Not out of fear, just finality. People ask me sometimes, what did it feel like, knowing what he tried to do? And I always think about that glass. That first sip, that moment where something small told me something huge. And I answer the same way every time. It felt clear. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just clear. Weeks later, I found myself sitting in a cafe, quiet, sunlight coming through the window, normal life continuing like it always does. In front of me, a glass of orange juice. I stared at it for a moment, not because I was afraid, but because I remembered how something so simple had almost ended everything. I picked it up, took a sip. Sweet, cold, exactly what it should be. And for the first time since that night, I allowed myself to feel something close to relief. Not because of what happened, but because of what didn't. I set the glass down gently, watched the condensation slide down the side, and thought about how close it had come, how precise his plan had been, how easily it could have worked. But it didn't, because of one decision, one moment, one quiet switch. He handed me poison, I said softly, more to myself than anyone else. A pause, then I handed it back, and that was the end of it. Not dramatic, not loud, just finished.
So, was it really over? Or did she only survive the first attempt?